All right. Hey, everybody. It's Jordan McConnell, a Crohn's veteran. I am very happy to have my awesome co-host, CJ Cabrera and Renika Wood with me. Today, we are super grateful to have an amazing man, investor and entrepreneur out of El Paso, David Chen. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be on the show.
Definitely.
So, well, yeah, well, I just, again, we're really grateful to have you, and one of the first things that's on, my mind is, what made you, reach out to, or, I reached out to you, but, but what made you decide to, want to come on to the show?
I mean, first, I always love and support any of our vets in any capacity that's possible. Thank you for your service and all your hard work and your sacrifices that, you've given to this great country. But I like you. I mean, you reached out. I think the one thing I tell everyone is, I pretty much try to talk to anyone that reaches out to me the best I can on social media. And, you've been very supportive and very helpful. And I felt like a very genuineness that was there. And so I was super excited. And of course, when I read a little bit more about Crohn's and the issues that happened there, I understood a little bit more. I understood the difficulties that went there. So that meant even more to me to help try to spread the message and get that out. And anything that I can do to help inspire anybody, and let them know that's going to be okay, I'm all for it. So I'm really grateful just to be part of this show. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And so, so one of also like one of the things on my mind was to ask you, about, I guess, El Paso, and also just, your background a little bit, kind of beyond. I mean, you're kind of known for all these different things, but what I'm really curious about is, kind of where you come from.
Yeah, so I was born in Taiwan. It was came here when I was really, really young in the States. Came out of pure, humility is the word I want to use. We were very, very poor economically. I lived out of a garbage can, was homeless. My parents, when we were little children living in apartment complexes, we would grab the beds from the apartment complexes that people didn't want from the poorest neighborhoods and put them in our home. I didn't even know what a bedbug was or even that existed at that time. I thought it was normal. Our first kitchen table was a cardboard box with a yellow tablecloth over it. And I lived like that for many, many years and didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And as a foreign kid in this country, obviously English is not my first language. It's my fourth language. And I saw a running joke today, from one of my friends who's an attorney, and it has a guy, a kid, and it says 7-year-old me trying to help my immigrant father read legal documents. Like that's what it is. And that's been my life. That's always been my life, and I think about those struggles and where I came from and the insecurities about my race and I was a small kid at the time, about who I was and my economic conditions and my parents who couldn't speak the language properly. And then, adding the fact that, you're having breakfast and lunch with your friends and nobody wants to trade for an egg sandwich because that's all I was getting every day because it was cheaper than bologna. And really kind of working that struggle and, growing up in El Paso where it's 80%, Hispanic, and I'm a Chinese kid, like it's different, and trying to deal with, different military families and, culturally, being of Chinese descent, but born in Taiwan, and there's a political issue there, which is a whole different story. But
right.
It's a story where, where I'm at now in my life, it's been very fortunate and blessed, but it's a story of overcoming every single day, even where I'm at right now. It's not picture perfect as we put on social media. That's just the highlight reels of life. Right. Life is tough. Life is challenging. Life is grueling, and people around you make it tough, and people that you love make it tough, and then people you don't know make it tough. So everyone's trying to make it tough, and it's up to you kind of get up and keep moving forward. And that was kind of my initial story. And I remember I went to college at 18. It was an interesting story because I was so lost. I went to a private school. My parents finally did a little bit better. I get to college and I figure out, okay, 8 o'clock classes, nobody needs me there. Don't have to be in all the classes, played around a little too much, and spent 6 years in school. And for most Asian kids, when you're spending 6 years in school, you already have your PhD. Right. And I'm still trying to figure out my life. And I was so ashamed and so lost and so hurt and so sad, and couldn't talk to my parents. I was ashamed. I couldn't talk to my friends. I felt less than. I couldn't talk to anyone else. I just remember crying, walking down that, the university. I went to the University of Arizona, and just like praying that things were going to be better in my life. And the weirdest thing happened. I was 22. My sister skipped a year, very, very smart woman. And I was 6 years as a junior. I'd already gone to like 6 different universities. I didn't know that you had to apply to other universities. It didn't make any sense to me. And I was told by the assistant dean at the time that I was going to make nothing out of myself in business. So that's just why I stopped wasting the time. And we're listening to these so-called experts that are telling us how things should be. And these young minds like myself were listening to like, okay, I'm not going to be anything. So I go back home because both my parents have a heart attack back in El Paso because they have a restaurant across the border in Mexico. And I'm working 100, 120-hour weeks every day for 3 years just to keep our house, you know? And, you know, when you go back and you think about the life that I grew up in and where we couldn't get on welfare, we wouldn't have any of that stuff. You know, I didn't have a good relationship with my father growing up. Me and my dad didn't really have a good relationship until 5 years ago. You know, a lot of struggles with that, you know, being culturally, you know, discriminated against, trying to find my own identity as a human being when nobody's accepted me anywhere because I'm an Asian American. So only Asian Americans accept me. You know, people back home don't accept me because I'm too American. Here, I'm not American enough. It was tough. And then when you leave college at 22, 23, 24, and all your friends are getting 80,000 a year jobs and big homes to living, you feel about this big about yourself. The turning point was I stopped feeling sorry for myself. The turning point was there are many, many people that are going through worse things than I've ever gone through that could still make it. And they weren't making excuses, and they weren't telling people why they couldn't do it. And they didn't care what everyone else thought. And I had really low self-esteem as, you know, even in my mid-20s, I was a young man trying to figure out my life. And I just remember working at the restaurants every single day, and I laughed at myself and said, you can go to school for 15-hour courses, but you can work 100 hours a week to keep your family's business. That was want versus need. I wanted to keep my family. I didn't need to sit there and give myself and be lazy because I couldn't work more than 1 day a week. And so what happened was I found my niche, and my niche is I speak, you know, 5 languages. So the ability to speak 5 languages working at the restaurant, I took the opportunity to talk to clients because the clients that were there were people from all over, and you didn't know what they did, but it was just a very friendly get to know you. This is what you do, talk here, talk there. But then I utilized my capacity to start networking. And that's when a great man named Paso wanted me to come in at Deloitte, which is my first job, and work there. And, you know, I became the youngest managing partner in the world at 33 with no PhD, no master's. In fact, I'm a college dropout. And people were mind blown how a kid could be a youngest MP in the world in a financial firm. So much so that my partners, when I was getting the job, were like, you have to go back to school because you're the only one who doesn't have a degree. Didn't matter if I was making $30 million a year. What mattered was that. And you know, kind of looking at my life and the transitions of getting out of what we call the hood and the ghetto, because, you know, the running joke is we really came from the hood. We didn't even have welfare. We were literally eating innards because it was cheaper. It was just cheaper. That's my whole entire life was like that. And living in a garbage can. When I was 15 years old, I didn't even know that I didn't even know there were box springs underneath a bed. I just thought it was normal to throw mattresses there. Like, that's how disconnected I was with life. And if my story is any story, it's that it doesn't matter if you're from El Paso and what you're doing. I can tell all the great things I'm doing now and all the blessings I've had. You can make it. You can make it. You can make it work if you want to work. You can use anything that you want to do. Life sucks. It sucks for all of us many, many times. But if you start looking at the blessings that you have, the fact that you're alive, the fact that you can breathe, the fact that you're on a Zoom call, the fact that that you can listen to this, that we have phones, the fact that we have people that love us, your whole perspective changes, and you stop focusing on the negative, because negative energy feeds negative energy and positive energy feeds positive energy. And if you can be that one beacon light to one human being and that person pass on to everyone else, you've done your job in this world, because you've only done good in this world, right? So when I get this job at Deloitte, I'm a hotshot. 25 years old. No one thought I could make it. College dropout. Kanye dropped that new song, College Dropout. So I'm singing all the time. You know, like, I don't need a degree. And I was proud, but I was arrogantly proud. And that's where a lot of young people make a mistake. So as a young man, we forget that our mothers and our fathers, the people that love us, didn't teach us that. We're so brainwashed by what we see on TV and all the big, nice things that we don't appreciate the blessings that were received from us. And those things are steering us in the wrong direction. And like most young men, I did the same thing. Here I am going back to school, working at Deloitte, working on the restaurants on the weekend, still going back and forth to Arizona, driving back and forth. And what happens? Now I'm making 60, 70,000 a year, and I just start partying. 25, 26, you're a manager at Deloitte, and I did all that. And I think, the big thing that I think kind of led to a big change was about 35 years old when I made Forbes and CNN and made some good money and got every dream car I wanted and everything else. I was miserable. I was completely, utterly miserable.
Yeah. So how did, it's so interesting because, everybody thinks, just probably have everybody watching, everybody listening, so everybody thinks that, once I get, that chain, or once I get that $1 million, or once I get that car or whatever, everything's going to be fine. And so, just from your perspective, what did that look like for you?
At 35 years old, I'm the youngest managing partner at Deloitte. I have my own home. I have all the nice cars you can imagine, making well over 6 figures, worth 7 figures. I have 10 different clubs, bars, and restaurants, the hottest nightclubs. Everyone knows me. There's a reason that billionaires blow their brains out. There's a reason that people do this stuff, because they lose their souls. They don't wake up the next morning being proud to see their mom or their grandma because they know what they did the night before. They're not proud to look at their significant others because they know the type of person that they were the week before. And all that comes from what I call ego.
Yeah.
But what I say, if you get a nice car because it's a nice car that you can truly do within your means, and that makes you feel a sense of accomplishment, you should go get that car. But I have a story to tell where, I do these rally races for fun, and I had one of my closest friends, and he came over and he was in the middle of a divorce. And this guy has 3 nice cars, including, an exotic. And he looks at me and he goes, I want the next car. I want the Huracan. And I'm like, why? And his response was, because I want it. And I said, listen, bud, for everyone that has a Huracan, we have friends that have Venadors. We have friends that have helicopters. We have friends that have Paganis and Bugattis. We have friends that don't have 1 jet. We have friends that have 2 jets. Why are you competing? If you compete against those people and your intentions aren't pure, the competition should be between yourself and making your family better and you're better, and breaking the cycle of all the bad stuff that you were taught for the next generation. And if you don't learn that, you're just putting yourself in more pain, because most of the decisions that we do are based on our ego. You want to get the better car because John got the car, not because you really need to buy the car because you think your self-worth is from that car. You want to buy that belt that's $800 to show that you were an $800 belt, but you wear the belt every other day. Everyone knows that you don't have multiple $800 belts, and now they're going to laugh at you. The real meaning and the real joy and value, at least in my opinion, is helping and growing and teaching others while also learning. Because when I say these things, I'm reminding myself of my blessings. And that's how my perspective changed. It was a very dark moment in my life. My girl was about to leave me. My parents stopped talking. My dad was about to divorce with the family. Deloitte, I was there for 2 years. It was a lot of trouble with Mexico at the time. So for my own safety, that's where I was based out of. I left and went back to El Paso. And then all of a sudden, my clubs, one by one, and my bars started shutting down. And all the people that were my friends, in Chinese, we have a thing called liquor and food friends. What does that mean? Do you ever notice that you have friends when you always bring the barbecue and you always go out and party and those people show up?
Yeah.
Those are liquor and food friends, right? For me,
friends.
party friends, right? And for me,
Exactly.
that's whack, right? Like it wasn't the other way around. And I'm sitting here in the dark and I've accomplished everything I want, and I'm miserable. And everything I've built, my humility, the things I learned, the things I try to do, the opportunities I did to finally make it in this country,
Right.
finally do what I had to do to show that I did. I forgot it all because my ego was trying to chase things that were really unnecessary. Because who am I trying to impress? And then the worst part was I couldn't spend time with my family, the people that I was trying to impress, because I was too busy caring about what everyone else thought. And it was my fiance that pulled me aside, and she says, and this is literally the moment. She says, the reason you have all these businesses is because of your ego. And she says, you might make $1,000 here, you might make 10 grand here, you might make nothing there, but you're doing all this because you want people to know who you are and showing it. Look how miserable and tired you are. We hold on to things that cause us stress because of our egos when we know it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's an ego to stay or an ego to go. And when I realized this, and I do a lot of mentoring and a lot of teaching, I realized at that point in time, I was done. So I shut everything down. It was all done. I shut them all down. I wasn't happy.
For how long? Like, I mean, he's kind of like went like a little like this, like sabbatical, like kind of walked the earth for a little while, or
no. What I realized was, why am I doing this? Right. That was an honest question. And I tell people, if you have to convince yourself enough to do something, you're already lying to yourself.
Right.
You do that, right? We give every reason why we should do it when we know deep down inside we shouldn't do it. That's an ego play. That's all ego, right? So at that point in time, I was like, well, this isn't bringing you happiness. You're working every single night when you get, I was still at Deloitte. So at night I was working on holidays. I was working during Christmas, during middle of lunch. If a cook didn't show up, I take off my jacket, jump in, cook, put my jacket back on and go back to Deloitte. And I'm grinding and I'm hustling. I'm doing what I needed to do, but I wasn't happy. Because it didn't matter the Bentley that was sitting there, the Lambo that I've had, or the Porsche that I have. None of that mattered because I wasn't happy. And why wasn't I happy? Because I was trying to compete with the Joneses. The Joneses don't even care about me. So why was I doing that? And that to me is the biggest weakness of any, I don't care what race you are, what color you are, the biggest weakness of people who are not educated in the sense to know that we are not trying to really fulfill ourselves and grow because we're caught up with all this silly stuff, right? That silly stuff is all distractions. They're distractions to be happy. They're distractions to our goals. And that's when the epiphany came. So I was still working. I was still running, a private equity firm based out of Phoenix. But man, I have a Lamborghini and a Porsche, and things were so tough that I was picking up people in a Porsche on Uber. I did what I had to do to make it work, and most people are like, well, you drive that car. Why would you do that? Because I got to eat. Ego, right?
Right.
And after I learned about ego, then it was perspective, and it was just being grateful for things that I have. And we make such a big deal about the things that we don't have. That's because of our ego. And we're not really grateful for the things that we're blessed with, which is why we're so miserable all the time.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's thank you for sharing your story, David. And it's very illuminating. Very illuminating. I really appreciate that. My mom, would tell me that to run your own race and to not look left and not look right. As far as your competition is concerned, and just run straight ahead. Run your own race and not compare yourself to other people. And so it's kind of good to hear you kind of reiterate that.
Definitely.
Appreciate that.
Definitely. Yeah, I just want to say when you were speaking, I heard a few words like perseverance, was one of the things that really stood out in my head the most. And, me being a person who have IBD, some of those same type of challenges that we go through with our own egos are not, we would sacrifice our health, not because we don't want to get a certain surgery, because people might view us as being a certain kind of way. So when you were speaking, I was like, dang, I've been there. Like I was on the verge of having to undergo a major surgery, but because of my ego, because of my, I'm call it vanity issues, that I'll be viewed as being less than. So I put my health on the line to appease people around me. But once I became comfortable with myself, I removed everything outside of me and focused on myself. Then things started to look better for me. So I can really identify what you're saying from perspective on what you're saying. The word I heard was perseverance, and that statement. Thank you for sharing it with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One thing that I felt was they speak English. I'm the same way. My parents don't really speak English that much. I had to translate most of the legal documents and stuff like that. And even now, I didn't always have ulcerative colitis, but I got diagnosed when I was 24. But at the time, I couldn't really talk to my parents about it because I didn't even know what it was. It wasn't until 2 years later that I actually learned the word for inflammatory bowel disease in Spanish. So I'm still trying to learn more Spanish and just to communicate with my parents. So I felt that struggle right there.
I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so easy to be angry and upset and feel things are unfair. We're just all dealt with different cards. It's just that simple. I mean, some people are lucky with great cards, but you don't know what they're really going through. You don't know what their childhood was like. You don't know if they had their mom and their dad or whoever you guys have in your lives. We don't know. We see it from an outsider's perspective. You know, that big, beautiful home. How many times have I heard this with this happy family? And then you hear this from the neighbors. I can't believe they killed each other. They don't seem like that. We're all battling. We're all fighting, struggling, right? But the difference is, why are we fighting and struggling? Is it because we're causing our own problems? Is it because we're sabotaging ourselves? Sabotaging, you know, I see this, I deal with a lot of athletes, right? A lot of athletes are my business partners. I see this all the time. And for the young people that listen to this, I'll tell you right now, you know, you'll never make enough money because there'll always be someone that makes more money than you. That's the reality of it. And if you measure it by money, you'll be completely unhappy. You can be like Steve Jobs, had all the money in the world and was innovative and be dead at 51. That's not fair.
Right.
It's life. That's life, right? You don't know. You're so worried about what's going to happen 5 years from now. God forbid, you can really walk outside, get hit by a car. You won't even worry about what's going to happen 5 years. So you won't be here tomorrow. People have a false sense, and right now, COVID's proven this. We have a false sense that we're in control. We have zero control. Because if we had control, everyone would be a billionaire, everyone would be healthy, everyone would be happy, and everyone that we love would have made it. So what can you really, your thought process, those are things that you can't control that make a difference. And I think that makes an invaluable difference, because when you can control that, like when I teach my mentor sessions, that's what we talk about, this way before we talk about business. And then we intermingle and go back to business. And at the same time, those are things that are so core that aren't taught to people, or people know it and they just refuse to look at it because then you're lesser than. I'm an alpha male. I'll say straight up I'm alpha male, but I'm so much alpha male that I can talk about these things. It doesn't bother me because I know every young man, every young person is dealing with the same issues. No one talks about it. Let's be genuine. Let's talk about this. Let's figure out why we're acting this way. Let's figure out why we're doing these things, because it's not fair, but nothing's fair.
Right.
So why hold it up?
Right. You know, that's definitely.
I agree.
If I can be real with you, before ulcerative colitis, I would say I was kind of compassionate, but I was in my own lane. You know, I really wasn't worried about anybody else but myself and the people around me. But after being diagnosed, it's just given me a great sense of, you know, appreciation about life and everybody, you know, around me. And the people that I don't even know that are dealing with like the same struggles that I am, like Jordan and Renika. Like it's, I'm just grateful, honestly.
Definitely, Jerry.
It is, and I think like what I really admire about you guys and Jordan is, you know, it's another issue that you didn't ask for that happened out of nowhere. You're not kicking and crying and screaming, and we all have those days. I tell this all the time. There's no magic pill. There's no magic book. There's things that you can practice and change. But even on my social media, out of 30 days, I got 6 days that it sucks. I'm tired. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. I don't know how to handle it. I've got to recontrol myself and figure it out. And everyone I know, all the celebrities and all my partners, everyone's the same way. Right? Doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter what you're doing for a living. It's all the same way. But you guys have a voice, and that's talking to people that, you know, you don't know what your impacts are and how you can help people. And that's what encourages me to keep doing what I'm doing on a daily basis and keep moving forward. Because if I can just help one person at least see things differently and be grateful for things, then I've done my job as a human being. So I really think it's great what you guys are doing as well.
Awesome. Well, well, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure CJ and Renika appreciate that too.
Oh, I know. I guess most definitely.
I definitely.
I guess for I'm sorry. Yeah, you got a question, Jordan?
Well, no. Go ahead, Renika.
No, I was gonna say was for me. You mentioned about just overcoming, and how people tend to have a lot of things in their world, but still it's like it's never enough. that overall mental health is a very important factor in how you perceive yourself, things around you. I know for us, I know for me personally, a lot of my struggles come from was thinking about how would people perceive me. And I've read stories where children who had what we have going on, they've committed suicide because they get bullied at school. They couldn't really go through what they was going through, or like young athletes who had a promising career to go to the NFL, NBA. They get diagnosed with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's. Now their whole world is shouting because they've been practicing probably since the kids. So that motivation, encouragement is very important. Having that good, healthy mind is one thing that I know for me personally, I seek to try to maintain daily, because if my mind isn't healthy, my body will always follow. But that's how I keep myself sane, is having that good, healthy mind first, despite whatever's going on with me. So thank you for sharing that once again. Your story is very inspirational, very, to me, I know especially, but thank you.
I appreciate it. And, you know, for the kids out there, everyone's listening, it's going to happen. I mean, if you're playing sports, you're going to retire. If you're playing sports, you're going to get hurt. If you're playing sports, you might not make it. You know, if you're, whatever you're doing, COVID's happening, diseases happen, people die. These are all inevitable things that you have no control. In fact, that you think you have control is what causes the stress. That's an ego, because you think you have control when you don't, right? If we all have control, everyone in their mind thinks we're going to live till 100. The reality is only 1% of the world lives to 100, you know? But the one thing I want to tell everyone out there is I am a college dropout. I am an immigrant. I am someone that everyone besides his mother's whole entire life told me that I was ugly. I didn't have dates growing up when I was in high school. I didn't have people that wanted to go to the prom with me in homecoming. When I got to college, I was more confused than I ever was, trying to find who I was as a human being and what I wanted to do in my life. When I got to the real world, I've been discriminated against multiple times in my life. You know, you can't see it. I'm 6'4", 280, so I can't be Asian. Because I'm 6'4", 280, I can't be Asian. Ridiculous things like that. My parents are getting discriminated against. I've had issues with my father. And I'll tell everyone that's listening to this, I was the youngest partner at Deloitte. I've run 2 private equity firms. I sit on 8 boards. I've been on boards 15 times in a row. Entrepreneur, Inc. I'll be teaching at SMU next summer, esports and video games.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
And you can't make it. And I'm from El Paso, Texas. And you don't want to make it because why? And you can't make it because why? And your excuses are what? And I tell these people, I'm like, the whole world's knowledge is right here. And you're too busy worrying about your Instagram and your likes. Everything I've ever learned in all my different businesses wasn't because I got a certification or I went to education. I Googled it. I wanted to learn. So for everyone that's listening to this, there are no excuses besides the ones that you're giving yourself. And the worst part about what I just told everyone is, nobody cares if you fail. Nobody cares. It's your problem. So fix it and change your life, or don't. But you can't just keep blaming. And that's one thing I tell, especially my younger audience, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I could have used every excuse in the book not to do it. I didn't have a choice. If I want to keep my mom's home and my dad's home, my sister going to school, if I want to eat, if I want to sleep at night, if I want to be able to do things like this, I'm going to have to work twice as hard and educate myself twice as much. It's not because I went to Harvard, but here's the great thing. Guess who now educates and consults and advises people who went to Harvard?
You.
Yes, that's freaking awesome.
But that's the blessing. So you got to keep doing it. You know, that's all it is.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. You know, I'm curious. I'm really curious. Yeah. So statistically, because I know that Crohn's is not necessarily. There's only about 700,000 people maybe in the country that have it or something like that. And so kind of in your travels and all the people that you come across, famous folks maybe. Like, is anybody that sticks out or any experiences that stick out to you that with people that have IBD?
I mean, when you the hard part about IDVs and things is people are afraid to tell their people because they don't want people to think that they can pass on.
Yeah, true.
You feel like a leper. You feel like if I tell so and so, they look at me different. And unfortunately, the first time, because everyone will experience this, you tell someone something this, and they make you feel. They're very uncompassionate, and they make you feel this bad. Then you're afraid to tell other people. Right? The second thing is there's people who don't want to stand up like the three of you and your people, and they use it as an excuse that then embatters the name of anyone else who has this. And that's extremely frustrating. I understand that too. And so to answer your question, it's very difficult for people to talk about these things because it's not a safe place to do so. But the reason I said what I said, and I started off what I said, it was, I'll let go of my ego. I'll let go of these problems. I'll let go of these things. This is who I am. You like me, great. I'm inspired. You're inspired by me, great. You don't, no big deal. But we're all dealing with a battle that no one else knows about. Unfortunately, right now it's Crohn's disease. But the great thing is, you guys are helping other people understand this disease. You can't pass it. It's, you know, this and that and that and this. It's let people understand it. And really, it's a lot of people's ignorance. And if that's their ignorance and why they don't want to interact with you, then thank riddance. That's all it's
Right. Yeah. They're lost. I'm not worried about those folks.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, you know, haters. So.
Right.
So, well, that's awesome. I mean, I was also curious, you know, that, you know, one of your interests, it looks like did we lose him? All right. Looks like it might have frozen. Uh-oh.
Man, it's freezing over here.
The other thing I learned, man, internet.
Yeah, my internet.
Got the man of his own.
Yeah, mine's fine.
Oh.
You gotta try, man. It does whatever it wants, whatever. If you guys have questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, you got
IBD. There are a lot of avenues.
Mine's internet's fine here. Let's see. I'm gonna jump out and jump back in.
On television, but to have an understanding of it, you know, so we want about like how to get our platform where we can be, you know, touch more people so that they can be less powerful than what it is right now. You have any suggestions on how we can
I think
do
what
that?
you guys are doing, continue doing what you're doing. You don't know who you're going to touch. I'll give you a very unique story. Just 2 weeks ago, I have a guy named Flex Lewis. He's a 7-time Mr. Olympia who follows me on Instagram. And how I met him was I was speaking with one of my partners on IG Live, and he just added me. I was like, oh, wow, 2 million followers is Flex Lewis. I know who he is. So I added him back. So I keep promoting my promotional stuff, and this is what I talk about ego. When I put my nice cars, I get hundreds, if not thousands, of likes and comments. And if I put something like I'm on Forbes or I put my lessons, I get 1 or 2 comments. My ego gets into place because I'm like, if I wanted to get the followers I want, I got to do this thing. And then my perspective kicks in and says, dude, that's the wrong thing to do. That's not right. You got to keep doing what you're doing. So I get a random message from Flex. After I share something with him, he goes, hey man, you really, I heard you from IG Live. You really inspire me. I follow you. And I'm like, what? 7-time Mr. Olympia follows me? Like, I'm a kid from Paso. Who am I? You never know who is listening to your platform. You never know who you're inspiring. You never know who you can help. You never know that the time that you guys are saying something, it's one less vet or one less kid who wants to take their lives because they've heard your inspiration that you can keep moving forward. That's our purpose in this life, is to be compassionate and loving and caring. And the world can keep feeding us all the negative stuff, but in my heart of hearts, I believe as human beings there's more good than there is bad, and that's the reality of it. So if you keep doing your platform, that's what matters. When it comes to other things like merch and business, things like that, it's capacity, right? A big time is because so-and-so is doing this, you should do this. But again, to me, that's also an ego thing, because you might not have the capacity to do it right now. Doesn't mean that you're not doing it right. Doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It just means that you're so aware that if you add on this extra stuff, it might not be complete, or it might hurt what's feeding you right now, your table. And because you're doing that, because Bob, John, and Steve, who have similar pages, are doing it, your ego gets in the way, and then you start feeling a little bit rushed that you have to do that. You also know if you're being lazy. That's the other thing. So you know the truth as long as you're honest with yourself. And if you're honest with yourself and you know that this is the point that we can do it because now we have the capacity, then you're more able to do different things. I did what every young person could do. I was in every game possible. You know what the end result was? Nothing. A lot of lost money, a lot of stress. People I trusted that just damaged their names, they damaged my names. That's what happens. And if you took it from a smarter capacity and were aware that we can do this now, we can go from here, we keep going, we keep growing, we keep showing, that to me is perseverance. That is a perspective, because the perspective be that 280 people are listening to this. That's 280 people you've helped. Instead of saying the 2,800 people that I can be helping, it's still 280 people. And just because they're not following or they're not making comments doesn't mean they're not listening. That's the value that every entrepreneur would do and tell in business, and be very mindful of all the different avenues you want to do, and be honest. If you don't have the capacity, it's not there. And I always tell people, just because it's an opportunity doesn't mean it's an opportunity for you.
Okay.
It's not true.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's an opportunity for you. So you have to be, this opportunity, I got to take the opportunity because it's never going to happen again. That's your ego. Right? If you're like, here's an opportunity, but I can't do it, and I'm going to 50-50 and try to go from there, and you're going to crash and burn that opportunity, then you're at 0%.
Right.
Right? Because you are so unaware of yourself. It has to start with you being aware of yourself and being grateful for what you have, and then everything else will open up. You know, that's what it is. And for everyone that has their off days, look, these are bad diseases. These are bad things. But at least the economic circumstances aren't as bad, and where you're in places where people don't even have the healthcare or even the knowledge for this type of disease.
It's true.
Right.
So are you not grateful for that? You're very grateful for that. You don't want to be stuck in some third world country in the poorest part of the world dealing with this with no insurance, no family, no ability to spread the message. That's perspective. That's how grateful you should be and how lucky you are to do this stuff. And that's what I'm saying. People don't focus on what they have. They focus on what they don't have. It just makes you miserable. It just makes you miserable. So that's what I would tell you. I would say, just check that and go from there.
Well, cool. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you. I mean, we know that you're, busy guys, so we can, kind of, wrap this up and let you, get back to, taking over the world. So, but I wanted, if there's anything else on your mind that you wanted to, share with the people, out there, any kind of departing words of wisdom, or or any current projects you're working on. I know they did that downtown spaces in El Paso. So so just anything.
Yeah. I mean, every project I've ever worked on, I just want everyone that's here that sees the glitz and glamour on my social media, I felt way more than I've ever succeeded, and I'm proud to say that. I'm not proud because I failed. I'm proud because I learned from the experiences and didn't keep doing the same thing. You do the same thing, that's just your ego, and you don't care. You don't care about being better, right? Number two, we're all born in really bad circumstances. We don't have necessarily the people that we want to support us. Be more compassionate towards them. You don't know your father's situation, your grandfather's situation. You don't know what they went through. In fact, if you were in that situation, you probably might not have been a better person than you are now. So you have to be very compassionate, break the cycle, and show up the next generation. Because if you can't forgive now, you'll never forgive. How can you teach the next generation to forgive? Doesn't mean that you have to forget. You just have to be compassionate and understanding. The third thing I think that everyone, would be very good to know is, you survived 100% of your worst days. Your heartbreak, you survived death, you survived sadness, you survived having, Crohn's disease, you survived many, many obstacles. And every time the world was collapsing and you didn't think you could make it, you're still sitting here right now talking to me because you are a survivor. 100% of your worst days, you are standing here. So stop crying, stop worrying about it, stop saying that you can't do it, because I have just proven one simple fact about everyone I've talked to. You survived every one of your worst days because you're listening and you're talking. Yeah. So you can survive and do anything.
That's right.
If you want to, and for anyone that wants to follow me, it's David Chen Panda, Panda. It's a branding thing. It works. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I have a podcast called Pandanomics Podcast. You can check it out. It talks about these life lessons in the initial phases, and then we get into business. But no matter how much money you have, no matter how hot you are, no matter how great you think you are, if you aren't appreciative, if you aren't balancing in life, you'll just be miserable. So you're a survivor, survive and do this and be better.
Awesome. Well,
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, David, and thank you for everything that you're doing for, Crohn's veteran and our brand and stuff. It's sincerely appreciated, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, for everybody listening out there, you can find us, of course, on Twitch, Chill Ghost. That's going to be changing to Crohn's veteran soon. You can find us at www.crohnsveteran.com. We're on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, all that kind of cool stuff. And so this, support our merch store. We're all wearing our Crohn's veteran gear today, and so, right? And so, David, check out the store. We're gonna send you a mug so you can, kind of impress your friends. And
Thank you.
Yeah, but
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.